Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tea Time. I'm Mac McKelvey. I am joined today by Alex Stonehouse, and I'll be the moderator today for our conversation. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody this is informal, ask me anything style conversation, so don't be shy. Chime in with your questions. We did get some questions submitted earlier from the community as well, because many of them know Alex, so that's exciting. So he doesn't know what's coming, but we do. We know some questions that we want to ask him. So let me more formally introduce Alex Stonehouse, who is the new Senior Director of Marketing at Salient MG. He brings over 14 years of experience in digital marketing. He specializes in driving growth with SaaS startups and industry leaders. He's particularly adept at navigating the challenges of growth stage companies I'm actually reading this, from refining product market fit to scaling market operations for rapid expansion. I wanted to make sure I got that right. He was most recently the marketing director at Forge, which is a community-driven learning platform for associations and professional networks. But at the core, he's a startup marketer. He's a community expert. He's some super user, and now one of the key members working behind the scenes to bring Startup Marketer to life. So welcome to Sum's Tea Time, Alex Stonehouse.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Looking forward to this.
This is going to be fun because, and actually, before we even start, because it is tea time.
Yeah.
Show off our tea time. What are you drinking today? Are you drinking tea? Are you drinking water?
I'm a coffee to the core. Coffee in the morning, coffee in the afternoon. Try not to do coffee at night, but I could drink it almost all day. I've got my mug here. This is actually the Friends of the Slinger Dog Park mug, which is my mom's pet project where she's trying to build a dog park in her little town in Wisconsin. So that happens to be the mug I'm using this morning.
I like it. I like it. We're big dog fans over here at Salient, and cats. So pet fans, we'll say it that way. We're pet fans. So I talked a little bit about your career, very little bit, but set the scene for us. Share a little bit more, if you will, about your startup marketing journey.
Yeah, so I got my start in marketing actually in the media world. I worked at the Washington Post, the Atlantic, a few publications, and that was great. It's fun. There's a lot of perks to that, but those were big companies, and accomplishing things at those big companies can be very frustrating and very slow. And when I was younger and earlier, even now, honestly, but especially early in my career, I was like, I need to do more. This isn't fast enough. I'm not learning enough. Like there were so many things I wanted to do that I wanted to learn about. And I felt like in those roles, you would kind of get pigeonholed into this one thing in this one area. And so I had my first startup opportunity about 10 years ago now, going to a company called Xometry, which was a double-sided marketplace technology platform that completely revolutionized the 3D printing space and custom manufacturing space. And I was tasked with, on the one hand, growing acquisition, on the other hand, growing their manufacturing network. And it was just this fascinating world of what's happening out in the world, how people are making a difference. Like you felt like you impacted people in their daily life. But then from the marketing side of things, it was you're focusing on acquisition, retention. You are working on referrals. You're working on improving the brand. You're doing all these things. And I mean, some has the awesome octopus mascot, and it's like that's really what you feel like. You're like, I have my fingers in everything. I'm impacting everything. I'm working across a bunch of different teams. And so I just absolutely loved my first experience in a startup. That company ended up IPOing. And from there, I've been living in the startup space ever since. So once I felt what it was like to have that much impact, control, like influence, all that, it was really kind of infectious, and I've been there ever since.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think we look over that sometimes when we think about what really is cool about the startup marketing world or marketing in startups is you do have so much control, and you can control the speed. And in a lot of ways, right, you are where the rubber meets the road. So I think you forget that. If you haven't worked in really large companies, like you mentioned, I've had the
Yeah.
same path where I worked in really large companies, and you do great work for the most part, but you just don't see that impact, and you can't control the timing, and there's a lot of things out of your control. So I appreciate
Yeah, you have the influence that would take you 25, 30 years to get at a huge corporation in 6 months, or when you start. Like the fact at a lot of these places, you can, if you want to talk to the founder or the CEO, nothing is stopping you. Like, in fact, they want to talk to you because they want to know what's going on and they want to hear about your progress. So, like, the communication just flows so much easier. And there's at most startups, there's fewer roadblocks in terms of bureaucracy. Obviously there's issues like budget and things like that, but in terms of someone stopping you because this is the way we've always done it or things like that, that just doesn't happen in the way that it can at bigger orgs.
Well, I want to come back to your startup marketing experience, but what I'd love to do now is talk to you a little bit about Startup Marketer in particular,
Mhm.
because that's how we all got to know you, is you were first a Startup Marketer member. So how did you first discover Startup Marketer, and what drew you in?
Yeah, so the last couple of years I was working at another startup, a SaaS company that was focused on had B2B customers, and our solution was a community and learning solution. And so I'm in this role, I'm marketing a community and learning solution, and it's the classic like eat your own dog food thing. It's like I'm selling community and learning platforms, and I'm not even in a community that I enjoy myself, or like I'm not part of a place where I feel like I'm learning at the pace that I want to be learning at. And so I just had this like almost cognitive dissonance where I'm like, if I'm preaching this, I need to be living it on the other side. And so in doing that, I started honestly with LinkedIn. I was like, who are the voices, who are the people that I want to hear from? And then in that process, the people and the voices I want to hear from are some of the people in you, some of the people who are listening to this right now. But then also a bunch of those people were in this startup marketer community. So then it just was such a natural jump. I signed up for initially for a month, and then I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be, and extended the membership from there. But it was just such a natural fit where it was like, this is what I mean. I found it during the process of my third startup. I was like, I wish I found this before I went to my first one, like this is what I've been wanting for the last decade. And I feel like I finally found it when I got there. And I think that part of that is startup marketers need peers. Like we need people to talk to. Oftentimes sometimes you're the only person on your team. And if you're not, you're often the only person on either your level or in your specialty. So you may be the only director or the only manager or the only person at a certain level. And being able to expand out, talk to people who are going through similar challenges or people who have done what you're trying to do, but the year before. Talk to people younger than you, talk to people older than you. Just all of that stuff is available in the community, and it's really great.
So since you've been in the community now for a little while, so we knew what drew you to it. Like, what are some of your favorite things about it? Like, how do you use the community today?
Yeah, well, when I first like on day one when I logged in, I what really stood out to me is the marketing foundations assets that are in there. There's for every single specialty that is relevant for a startup marketer, there's really in-depth writing, resources, assets available. So if you want to learn about content marketing, you can dive deep. If you want to learn about SEO, you can dive deep. And so I started in there on the like right initially just digging into those, learning, making sure what I thought I had expertise in, I'm actually an expert. Like, is it matching what I learned in 2020? Does it match what people are saying in 2024? Am I up to speed? Am I doing the best that I can for myself, for my career, for my company? So that's where I started. But then very quickly it became obvious that there's events like this, there's a podcast, there's all this amazing content that's coming out of it, and articles. Just like if you want to stay up to speed on what's going on, it was an amazing place. Like sometimes there's so much I was like, I can't even keep up with the pace that this is coming out at. It's really was awesome. And on that topic too, the what I really liked about it is there was talk about areas of specialization that you could take the information and go actually do your job better on the back end. So
Hmm.
there's other communities out there that exist, but sometimes I feel like they were more like just networking or just complaining about things or just making fun of sales or whatever it might be. And I felt like in the startup marketer community, I could go in there and take away things that I could go apply on my job the next day, the next week. I could share with my teammates to help them improve. Like I could take information and share it up to the CEO or the founder. Like it was just a place where I could get information that I could actually use immediately. It was actionable information that it doesn't exist in all communities the same way.
So it's interesting you say that, because some of the things I've been talking to a lot of folks that aren't members or folks that are just recent members, and a
Mhm.
lot of them say they didn't actually realize how deep it was until they kind of dove in. Are there things you're still discovering that are sort of some hidden gems, if you will, that weren't readily available? It wasn't why you necessarily signed up, but then you stumbled upon them and are like, wait, this is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. There's several, but top of mind, one of them was the book and expert feature inside the community. There are people available to talk to who, for a pretty reasonable fee, where if you have a gap in your knowledge, whether you're a founder, a marketer, there's something you need to do for your organization and you have a gap, you want to get a second opinion, you want to learn more about it, you can schedule a session and really dive deep and talk to somebody who's that's been their main focus. It's the thing they're obsessed with, it's the thing they think about all day. And you can honestly in those sessions gain like weeks, months, years worth of knowledge in just talking to them. And then from there, like you can decide to work with them more, you can decide how to continue the relationship. But it's a really awesome way to get exposed to just to dozens of experts that really have made their stamp in the marketing world and the startup world. And then one other thing that I think is really cool in the community is there's curated courses. So sometimes when you're trying to learn something new, if you just go to Google and say, "Oh, I want to learn about SEO," you're gonna get all kinds of different things, different quality. Some of it's from 5 years ago, some of it's new. It's hard to know if what you're reading as the first link is the thing you should be trusting or digging deeper into. And so the Startup Marketer has an entire list of curated courses that the team here has vetted, that they've gone through, that they've made sure it's accurate information. It's stuff that would help you as a startup marketer. And it's specific to your role in this type of company. So one thing that I always come back to is the advice that you would give to a marketer who works for Lockheed Martin or Sony or somebody who's at one of these humongous organizations with unlimited resources is going to be different than somebody who has a small team and a small budget and all that. So these courses take that into consideration and help you to learn in a way that is applicable to what you're trying to do and the company and the size and the stage that your company's at.
So what about so somebody's new, right? So they've just logged in for really the first time. What is something you would want to call out to them to go check out right away? Like what's a good place to start?
Yeah, so there's a couple things there. The first one I would actually say is to take advantage of the member directory. So one of the things that's really cool about the way that the platform is set up is when you go look at the member directory, you can see who is near you regionally, you can see who has similar expertise to you, you can see who has expertise in areas you want to learn more about. And it actually allows you to connect with those people individually. So that's one thing where any stage you're in, honestly, you can come in and no matter if you're 5 years into your career, 1 year, 25 years, match with people who are near you or who have similar interests, start talking to them, start engaging in the community. That's a great place to start. And another great one too is templates. There's a lot of people come into the community, I think, trying to say they come in with they're good at one thing. You're good at social media. You're good at you've had one or two jobs and all of a sudden you maybe got a promotion recently or something, and now you have all these new responsibilities. There's, I think the number's probably around 100 at this point, but it's a lot of templates available where you can come in and you can say, all right, I need to go, for the first time, I need to go pitch an agency on X, Y, and Z. How do I even go about doing that? How do I set up tracking for a paid media campaign? Like all these different questions come up. And when you're a marketer on a small team, you might not know or work with somebody who has done it before. These tools allow you to tap into the collective knowledge of everybody in the community and the people behind the startup marketer who set this all up to let you get that information. So that's where I'd start. It's really a great resource, and it all comes with the small membership fee. Like it's all in there, it's all included and readily available.
Let me ask you, all right, so you have now access to more people, more templates and trainings and all sorts of stuff that's been curated. Has it shifted the way you approach marketing? Has it helped augment maybe skills or knowledge that you didn't have before you became a member? How would you say you, if you've changed, how?
Yeah, I definitely have. I think what's been extremely valuable is the ability to access the opinions of other people who don't have a filter on their opinion. They have nothing to gain from giving you their honest opinion, other than maybe trying to sound smart or something. But like they're sharing their honest opinion with you because they care about you, they care about the community, they care about this profession in a way that it can be hard internally sometimes. Like if you're on a small team and you're toying with an idea, depending on the culture of your organization, if you go with an idea that's not fully baked to somebody, they may hold that against you. They may think you don't know what you're talking about. Like there's some risks to that depending on how your organization is set up. Or even if like if you might report directly to the CEO or the founder, and you may want to come to them with a little more of a baked idea and not have to be ideating and brainstorming on things you're not 100% clued in on. And so the community allows you to talk about those things in a really like raw and unfiltered way where you feel safe to discuss it. And you feel safe being 100% wrong. Like if 50 people were like, I totally disagree with you, you'd be like, cool, well, I guess I was on
Nice
the
little
wrong.
focus group there. Yeah, exactly.
There's no negative impact on your career or how you're seen, but then like any of that. So it's really a safe collaborative place from that standpoint. And it honestly has, because of the way that the community is structured and people are talking about different areas of expertise, it has really helped me to think about building a well-rounded marketing plan and executing in a really well-rounded way. So if you're in the community, you'll realize like I may not have thought about content marketing for the last couple months in the way that I should have, but there's so much good information about content marketing here that now I feel like I'm dropping the ball if I don't focus on content marketing. Like it just reminds you of what's possible and what's important, and how a well-rounded marketing plan and strategy can function and be executed.
Well, I'm really glad to hear you say that because that was our intention when we thought about the community aspect is one of the things that we felt was limited in some of the other communities is that they're very specific to a role. So there are product marketing communities, there are revenue marketing communities, there are content communities. But we tried to show, because you just said it, right? As a startup marketer, you're actually wearing multiple hats
Yeah.
and you have to understand how all these pieces work together. And and I think when you're in, and we try to build a community that spoke to that, right? You might be a specialist in content, but you better
Yeah.
understand, the infrastructure that you need and the metrics that people are looking at outside of content and become a more holistic um, marketer.
Yeah, and I think to a large extent, marketing in its broader sense is sort of like how you show up to the world. It's how you shall tell the story of the company. It's a broader definition when you think of it like that. And so the community is actually a really great place for founders in the same way that it is for senior marketers, in the same way that it is for junior marketers. Like it's for whoever is disseminating the story of your company out into the world. That's who the community's for. It like title almost doesn't matter. It's how are you executing this type of work and how are you getting the story of your company out to the world? That's really what it is.
So let's stay on the topic of marketing communities overall. Like what do you think the future of marketing communities are in audience building and how do you see some evolving to meet those changing needs?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and the way that I think about it, and I've thought a lot about community in the last few years, selling a community product. I think communities right now, especially the ones that are doing it well, are delivering on the original promise of social media. So the social media was originally this place where you were going to come and you were going to make these deep human connections. You were going to learn from people who had more expertise than you. You were going to be able to come there, and curate the experience to exactly what you wanted to become a better professional, a better person, a better all the it was all extremely positive, and um there are still very positive aspects of social media depending on what platform you're on. But there's some negative ones as well, and for in a lot of ways it has become more promotional. There's some there's things that just haven't turned out as they originally were intended on some of the social platforms. In my opinion, communities really take the lead on that now, that they're stepping in where some of the social media platforms have dropped the ball, and they allow you to really hone in on that kind of curated experience where you're learning the things that you more about the things you care the most about. You really are making personal connections. You can have one-on-one conversations. You can meet a whole broader network of people who you may have not had access to or may not have been able to find on some of the platforms that have 50 million people or 2 billion people or whatever some of these platforms right now. Like the specificity of it actually does really help to make you feel like you're welcome there, you're at home, you belong. And the people who are in there with you are like firing in the same direction. Like you have similar goals, you're trying to do the same thing. And it just really does feel special. And I think it allows you to learn and to improve in the way that you're the most comfortable doing it. So if you're a visual learner, there's ways you can learn visually. If you're an auditory learner, you can listen to podcasts or you can watch a YouTube video. Like you can have self-guided education, you can have joint education. There's all these different ways of learning, and it allows you to do it in the way that is best for you. So it's not prescriptive. It's come to the community, and then there's all these avenues you can go down and do it in the way that works for you. And then the one other thing I'll mention on that is that if you think about how historically you people did professional learning, oftentimes it was you go to one, two, three events a year, you go to Vegas for some big trade show, you do things in these little snippets, and you try to cram as much as you can into the 2 day period, and then you retain maybe 10% of it. And the 10% is probably high number, honestly. And then like you make some good connections. I'm not throwing shade at that experience because it can be a really good experience. But the value of a community like this is it's 24/7, 365. It's available anytime you need it. If you're in a pinch at work and you need something, you can log on in the moment and find an answer. If you want to be more casual and just be talking with other people who have similar experience to you, you can do that too. Like there's so much freedom and flexibility, and it's available whenever you want it, which I think is a huge, huge part of it.
So I thank you for all of that. I think you're in an interesting spot. So here's the big question, right? So you've now been on both sides. So you've been a community member, and we
Yep.
now brought you on to work on full time on the startup marketer community. So, you know, what do you think now? So you're going to be part of the team behind the scenes. What what do you think you're going to bring to the table that is going to help us provide even more value for members?
Yeah, honestly, I joined the team because this is the resource that I wish that I had throughout my whole career. This is what I've really always wanted, and the chance to be a part of it is just something that is really special to me. I think what I want to do is to just continue to improve that and make that the way that I feel about it now is how I want everybody else in the community to also feel. And I want people who may be feeling that same way where like, I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I don't know where I'm supposed to learn. We want that person in the community because I don't want them to spend a year, much less 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, feeling that way where they're like, I haven't quite found the place where I could learn the most and where I can get the most connected. I want to help people break down those barriers. And whether you're on a team where you're trying to get your first sale in the door and get to 100K in revenue so you can then shift your focus to getting to 1 million, or you're at 25 million trying to figure out how to get to 100 because you want to have a successful exit, like the community is set up to really help people in any of those scenarios be successful. And and that's part of it too. I've been in both of those scenarios. I've been the third employee at a company and the first
Wow.
marketer before. And I've also been the person who comes in as like kind of the hired gun to be like, let's ramp growth up by 5x in the next 365 days and figure out how to really break through. So, for people who are in those spots, I want to be the person to like give back and kind of pay it forward and be the person who helps them to do that same exact thing.
You said something interesting, and I don't think we spent enough time talking about this, but you're right, because the startup space is even more fragmented when you think about the stage of growth that these companies are. So there's the individual, and they have some, some level of expertise, but companies are constantly evolving as well, which means marketing needs to evolve at different growth stages as well. So this is sort of a rhetorical question, I think, but knowing that, does that make a community even more important, right? Because you have to evolve as a marketer as well.
Yeah, I think that's really it. And there's no worse feeling than being like I am stagnant. Being stagnant in your career or just life in general is not a great feeling. And it's funny because people will talk about like change is hard and change can be scary and all that stuff. But to me, the opposite is scarier, like the idea of not changing at all. That is scary. Like to look back after 30 years and be like, oh damn, I wish I'd changed more. Like that's scarier
I'm
than the
still doing print advertising.
exactly. So like that that's extremely valuable. And it's funny because there's stuff you can see where there's like these major shifts that happen in the space and in the marketing world, and they become pretty apparent as they're happening. But usually by the time you notice them, if you're not paying close attention and you're not actively trying to learn, it's almost too late. So like by the time a platform becomes so well known that everybody's on it, it's like, well, you missed the moment to take full advantage of it. And so being in a community like this is where it gets highlighted. Like these are the type of people who they're early adopters, they're innovative thinkers, they're the type of people who are constantly trying to push themselves and push other people. And being early on trends and being early on understanding what's going on, and like by doing that you don't waste money and you're very efficient and you can take advantage of scale in a way that other people can't. Like there's all these little benefits to being early, and being in the know on this stuff and being actively looking for opportunities, in a way that I think is just hard if you're not dedicated to it, you're not focused on it, you're not trying to improve. So yeah, it's really collaborative and great way to learn and stay up to speed on things.
So if you're a well, actually, let me ask you this question. So we brought you in right at an exciting time for us.
Yeah.
So right now we have launched the Awesome Awards, and what would who should apply for this and why? Why is recognition even something we're talking about? And is it important? And if so, why?
Yeah, so it is important. Honestly, anybody who's doing anything unique, interesting, innovative, they should be applying to this award. And it it's very important because people at companies that tend to be on the smaller side in terms of your annual revenue or maybe your total global reach or your footprint or whatever it might be, you can be doing work that's as interesting, if not more interesting, than some of the bigger organizations out there, but you just don't get the press, you don't get the coverage, you don't get the recognition that you might, if you work for Coca-Cola or some other global brand, because everybody sees them, everybody wants to promote them. And the reality is people in these companies are extremely smart, they're very innovative, and they deserve the recognition. Um, and one, they deserve it. So just straight up, they deserve to be called out for the awesome work that they're doing. From a like kind of career focused standpoint, they also like it's beneficial to be recognized and to have awards on your resume, to have all those things from a personal standpoint. And it also looks really amazing for the company that you work for. So like if you're a startup and there's people who work for your company and they're getting recognized for their excellence, that reflects well on them, but it also reflects well on you and your brand, the culture you've built, everything that you're doing. And so I know that there's awards that are set up for individual people, and there's also awards that are available for agencies to submit for and startup companies to submit for. And so like that's really what we want to do, is recognize all of those different groups. And great work is great work, whether you're at a huge corporation or you're at a startup. And there's no reason that people at startups don't deserve to be recognized for that work. So that's really what we're trying to do here.
Question from the audience on what are you excited about for next year? So the awards are a big thing right now. Is there anything you can preview that people can get excited about for next year?
There's a lot coming next year. A few,
Maybe one thing you're excited about.
yeah, one of the things I'm really excited about is we've been talking a lot about getting a marketplace going for 2025. And so one of the things that's really extremely hard about working in a startup is you don't necessarily have unlimited connections to people when you need a specialist to come in. And so we want to make it easier for people to find contractors, to find agencies to work with, find other people to work with. But the key point on that front is um, we want to vet them so that we're not just saying, oh, you're good luck, I hope this agency is great. If they're not, that's not our problem. Like if they're
Right.
not, that is our problem because we're vetting them and we want to provide a good experience for you. So I bring that one up because it speaks to what we're trying to do in the community as a whole, which is connect people and connect professionals in this space. And so whether it's one-to-one with individual people or a person to an agency, a person to an expert, all of those different things, like that to me is what's really important is as we're building out the community, we want the people in the community to be building out their networks, to be building out their own connections, in a way that just sets you up to have continued success to build out the broad network of people who you know in the marketing world. And I think we can both speak to the fact that the more of that you do, like think great things start coming your way. You both do great work and have great results when that happens, but you end up meeting people who 10 years later in your career you fall back on for advice or you fall back on to do a project with. Like it, this is how the marketing world kind of works, and we want to be as helpful as we can in that aspect. So I'm excited about that for sure.
Let's talk. I love that you said that because let's talk about people that don't know how it works, which is new grads. New grads are people very early in their career. Is is the startup marketer a place for them, or is it going to be too over their heads for what they've learned to date? Like, what's your gut?
So absolutely a place for new grads. Going back to what I originally said about wishing I had this when I had first started in the startup world. Really, what I wish is I had known about this when I was still in undergrad or coming out of college. Like the way that I was approaching my job search back then, which I've got some gray hairs in my beard now, so it was a while ago at this point. But
Don't even talk to me about
uh,
grit. Yeah.
yeah, so the way that I was kind of approaching that search though was I was a history major. I went to I was a humanities in the humanities department. Like we didn't have where I went to school, we didn't have a marketing major. So you did your best to get something that you felt like could be related to what you wanted to do in your career after that. But the path was kind of like do corporate recruiting, get a job at a big company, go to grad school or law school or something like that, or that was kind of it. Like there wasn't I felt like I wasn't exposed to this world in the way that I would have liked to have been until I was several years into my career already. And as someone like that, like because I didn't have a marketing degree, I was like I had to learn all of that stuff in my all of this details of the stuff in my first job. I didn't have a way to learn about content marketing when I was in school. I didn't have a way to learn about all these different things when I was in school. And especially not in a curated way where it's put together in a package that helps you to understand it and to help you build out your knowledge base in a way that scaffolds and builds as you go. So I wish I really would have had that. And then honestly, even for people who are in a marketing major or who have those kind of degrees, like the pace that the industry evolves is so much faster than the pace that the curriculum can evolve that supplementing what you learned in your marketing degree, like you have to supplement it at some point. And the startup marketer is a great way to do it. And you'll meet entrepreneurs, you'll meet founders, we have job listings, like there's all these different things that you can do to get step your foot in this world to really set your own path and to have some control over your career in a way that is more easier to do through a community like this than it has been in the past.
I'm going to open this up to the audience for any other questions. So feel free to drop a question in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just keep asking my questions, but I would like to represent everybody. I will ask, so we talked about new grads. Let's talk about you're seasoned, right? So what if you are someone that has 10, 15, 20 years of experience? What's the draw? Is this for them? Is this for members of their team? Is it both? And what's your gut on that?
Yeah, well, I'd say definitely if you have a team, sign up the team because having everybody in here is beneficial. One aspect that is really beneficial for if you're 10, 15, 20 years into your career is oftentimes when you do that, you've been in an industry for a long time, and industries, when you're in a silo for a while, can sometimes get kind of bad habits, for lack of a better term, like or just standard ways of thinking. So it's like, oh, this thing doesn't work in manufacturing, or oh, this way of doing it doesn't work in financial services. Like there you can get into these silos. And one of the most refreshing things about who's in the community is you hear people's opinions from across a broad spectrum of industries and across the broad spectrum of specialties. So you can be in a manufacturing startup and you'll hear something that somebody did on a consumer product and you're like, oh my God, like that is brilliant. We can tweak that 10% and apply it to what we're doing here in the manufacturing marketing side. Like you can learn so much across industries, that I think that's really important. And then the other aspect too is I'm a big believer in learning from people with less experience from you who have a totally different perspective. So like Gen Z and their buying power and their influence is getting more and more important by the day and is not going to be less important anytime in the near until Gen Alpha becomes
Yep.
their 20s, which is going to be another decade or whatever. So like understanding how they think, how they influence trends, how they influence how people want to buy, all these different things is extremely important. And like if you are not thinking about how to engage them and how to interact with them, you are dropping the ball. Like it's you don't want to be the 40-year-old guy who's stodgy and doesn't understand how the 25-year-old is thinking. And you're not going to be able to think like them magically. Like you have to talk to them and can engage with them and get advice from them. Like I think the people who have the most success in the marketing world are the people who embrace the continuous learning and lifelong learning and learn until the day they retire and beyond the day that they retire. So um to me that's huge, and having a wide range of expertise and ages and all that in the community is what makes it so special.
We have another question from Kate now. You've attended nearly all of SUM's tea times and expert sessions. Do you have a favorite, or some that others should watch? Are there any that stand out to you?
Yes, there are several. That is, I'm trying to remember everybody's names.
That's
So
okay. We can probably help you with their names, but that's okay.
I would recommend that you people go back and look at the whole catalog. But there was one with, I want to say, Dr. Becker, and
Dr.
I
Michael. Yep.
yeah, that session was about it was about organization at a high level, but it was about basically like using organization and AI to your advantage to improve your ability to think essentially. It was like how do I set up my beliefs and how I think about things and how I share those beliefs with the world in a way where I'm like bringing my authentic, interesting, unique thoughts out to the world in a way that is truly special. And he shared some really kind of advanced frameworks for doing that. And I think the session was probably only 45 minutes, but I filled like half a notebook writing writing down tips from him. And I came out of that being like, I can't believe I just got that for free as part of the community. Like it blew my mind how smart he was about the topic and just how much I could take from that and apply to what I was doing and become a better just become more organized and be more clear in how I think and how I share my thoughts just from that one session. And so that's
I
just
remember.
a top of mind example, but I mean
Yeah,
that
I remember that session. I also remember one of the things I think that we talked about internally afterwards too was to stop thinking about the output and
yeah,
instead think more about the inputs and let AI decide, right, the
yeah,
best way to take that content and put it in the format that's going to be the most relevant for whatever you use it for. I agree with you. I thought that was a really good one.
yeah, and just the frameworks he had set up for everything were like I was screenshotting stuff and taking that was yeah, it was great.
All right, we'll make a note to connect you with Dr. Becker because
Yeah,
he's a good friend of ours and awesome.
yeah.
Um, so I love that question. I think and maybe people don't understand the difference between tea time and sessions. Do you, as a community member, because you're brand new to the team, do you understand the difference between the two and can you articulate it?
I hope I can articulate it. My the way I look at it is the tea times are a bit more casual, more back and forth, kind of almost interview style. And then the sessions are much more in depth on a topic. So it's somebody who has an expertise diving into a topic, and really educating the audience on something more specific. Kind of this conversation is a good example of we touched on a lot of different things. Hopefully I didn't sound scripted at all because I'm not scripted at all. And so we're just talking off the cuff, right? So we're having a conversation and we're doing it in that way. The sessions are slightly less conversational, but they're both of them are very valuable and that you when you come to them, you should feel like you left with at least one nugget that you can go apply to your job and to your life. And so they're similar in that sense, but they're different in the way that it's executed, in the way that it's put forward. But I've really enjoyed some of the sessions as well, like the one that you did on developing like your executive brand, your personal brand. That one was really compelling. And there's been some really great ones that we have recordings of that are definitely worth going back and watching for someone listening to this.
Well, I appreciate all of this. Are there any closing remarks you have? Anything you want to leave listeners with, whether it's a guide to how to best maximize their time on some, or anything you want to close with?
Yeah, I mean, in the startup marketer community, I want to talk to you. The other people in there want to talk to you. Do not be shy. There's no stupid questions. It's extremely collaborative. It's a really great place to come and share ideas and also to learn. There's always interesting people are sharing interesting ad campaigns. They're sharing new data. They're sharing all kinds of things that will help you as a marketer. And so we are all very friendly. We are all very interactive. And so if you come in there, you will see me. I will be I'm a chatterbox in there. So come talk to me, so I'm talking to other folks like myself who want to accomplish some really great things in the startups that they're at.
Well, Alex Stonehouse, thank you so much for joining us today. I know everybody can find you in the startup marketer community, and they should be following you so they can DM you and talk to you directly. Thanks for being here today, and we'll be back next week, I think, with a session. So thanks everyone from Startup Marketer.